A-E-1 short.
My name is Jason Forbach. I'm a Broadway actor, a screenwriter, and a playwright, and I'm going to be directing my first feature here in January, Storytelling Through Images with Photography, the understanding of ensemble and rhythm and collective, collaborative storytelling groups with theater, that sense of ensemble. If I were to go all the way back at the beginning, when I was really just trying to hustle here in New York, I was working 3 jobs. There's no formula in any of it. You just have to keep doing it because you love it. Be 100% yourself with joy and pride, and then realize that's what people have been looking for all along. I grew up in Kansas City, a burb of Kansas City, Missouri, and I was always a really creative kid. And was really good at self-generating ideas and worlds and liked to be busy and liked to make stuff. And my parents weren't necessarily creative people, but they were very encouraging. So they threw me at everything. And I kind of got to try on a lot of different stuff. But I loved music, and I studied piano and really stuck with that for a long time, and it gave me I loved the diligence of it, and I loved the study of it, and for some reason there was something about classical music specifically which like calmed my mind. And that evolved. Like I would play I played clarinet in the marching band. I was in the church symphony in the handbell choir. Like I was a music nerd. Auditioned for the music school there, which it is not known for, but it is really exemplary program. And I auditioned as a pianist, and then I also sang, and I ended up getting more scholarship money as a singer, and was just thought like, okay, here we go. And so I got my degree in music, and then went on to get my master's in opera at the New England Conservatory in Boston, and yet again left school or graduated, started working with opera companies, like Boston Lyric. I did a season at Boston Lyric. And in doing the work, I was like, this doesn't feel quite right. And it was really some time before I kept saying to myself, like, you love theater. You've always wanted to go to New York. What are you so afraid of? And it was 2004, 20 years ago, where I decided to come to New York. And it took me that long to be brave enough. And even then, it was like, you figure out the hustle. You get the 3 jobs. You go from one to the next, and you try to fit in auditions when you can, and you get disheartened. And so even that was a process. But even in pursuing it, I felt more joyful than I was at all the other things. And then even after a lifetime of doing that, I am now in a phase where I am writing more. I'm telling my own stories. So I am a screenwriter and a playwright, and I'm going to be directing my first feature here in January. And I had to kind of laugh because the storytelling through images with photography, the understanding of ensemble and rhythm and collective, collaborative storytelling groups with theater, that sense of ensemble, all of those different jackets that I tried on all funneled into this thing. And I kind of marvel at it. Who you are creatively, it's a problem both ways. If you're like, I am an actor, this is who I am. Or say even more specifically, I am a singer. And then you lose your voice. And then you have a crisis of self. And it is discounting all the other ways with which you can create. So you're a creative spirit first. And I think this was put into a really definite focus during the pandemic, when a lot of people that depended on live performance couldn't do it anymore. You saw people spiral online. And it's because they had wrapped up their identity in what they did versus who they are. And it goes for when you are working and when you aren't working. I think there's as much benefit as holding yourself within what you do and being able to remove it, so it's not so defining in a way that's actually limiting both ways. If I were to go all the way back at the beginning, when I was really just trying to hustle here in New York, I was working 3 jobs. I worked at a box office and a gym, and I waited tables, and I would go from one to the next, And I remember that really vividly. And also just not having the time or energy to really audition, but I was trying. And then it was hard even to get into rooms. And I started singing at clubs just to get out there. And I had done this even in Kansas City a little bit, and in my college town, which I'll thread to some jazz stuff later. But that was a big part of my beginning years. But in doing so, I met a guy also from my hometown of Kansas City, and we became fast friends. And he said, "I have a gig. I can't do it. I referred you." And I was like, "Okay, great." And I was young and naive, and I was just happy to I didn't ask if it paid. I didn't ask what it was. I didn't ask anything. And I showed up to the rehearsal, and in the moment found out that it was a concert at Carnegie Hall honoring Hal Prince with the New York Festival of Song. And there was all of these theater legends there. And I couldn't believe what I had kind of just stumbled into after years of banging on doors. And I got to sing You're Gonna Love Tomorrow from Follies, Sondheim, with Judy Kay and Lisa Vroman. And in the front row was Hal Prince, front and center, and flanked by Joel Grey and Carol Burnett. And I was gobsmacked by the whole thing. And I got to meet Hal Prince, and, he was just really lovely. And then it was about 6 months after that where I was auditioning for the Las Vegas production of Phantom, and got it. It was my first big production job and production contract, and covered Rao, and lived in Vegas and did that stunning production because it was an $80 million production. It was a wild job to have as your first big job, because even the theater alone, the technology that they used, that building the theater for it was a $40 million endeavor. It was spectacular. It was truly spectacular. And so I loved it. And I was, the apartment I found, I called my mom immediately when I walked in, and the walk-in closet was the size of my Hell's Kitchen bedroom. So I walked into the closet and cried. COVID was really hard, and I fell into a really dark, depressive state. I really questioned who I was, and it was a lot of therapy. It was a lot of my therapist, my psychiatrist, and I started to really understand even, dealing with depression, anxiety, but I also had really profound ADHD, which I think a lot of artists do. And I started taking treatment for it, and it quieted. What it did was, I think I had a version of what I thought, but what it ended up doing was quiet a lot of the conversations I have in my head, which I thought was normal. But now I realize it's not so normal to give every thing that is a sensory stimulant in the room equal focus, because it overwhelms the circuits, right? So I started to learn through all of that and through meditation and all that stuff to just truly focus. It's not about hyperactivity. It's about I felt my spirit and my mind calm. And it also calmed a critical voice. And that paired with this moment of chance. It's funny to be in an original show, creating a new part, telling a vital story, and see how that was born. Each one thing led to the next that I would never have anticipated. Each thing informs the next, and it's not for us to know or anticipate. I think so many times as artists we try to be calculating. There's always a thing about networking and kind of like pressure testing a career plan, and it's like there isn't. It's like, how do I make this video viral? You don't. Like it just has to strike, in a way that is genuinely you and hits an audience at a moment when they want to receive it. And there's no formula. There's no formula in any of it. You just have to keep doing it because you love it. I think the interesting thing with our artistry is like how much we inhibit, how much we love something, that we love it so hard. I teach, and the way my whole methodology in my teaching now is trying to, aside from teaching craft, is to like identify where they are gripping on for dear life. As you have to in a city that's really fucking expensive and hard and stressful. And finding ways I can unburden them. You know what I mean? Even if it's a teacher who once said, like, you're fat, you'll only play these roles, you're underpitch, whatever that one bit of criticism which calcified into this boulder that they're still carrying around, the one thing I want to do is take away this imaginary boulder and be like, that's not a thing. So that you can just get to making art faster. You know what I mean? It is crazy. It's like so many people say like, oh, I'm too this, or I'm not enough that, or I don't have the right color hair or the right height or whatever. And it's like, that's not what it's about. The actual end game is to be 100% yourself with joy and pride, and then realize that's what people have been looking for all along. And that's what you've been looking for all along. There is nothing else. There's no other option. You can't be anyone else. So like, why try? Because in the end, people want exactly what you already are. You just can't decide when that happens.
A-E-1 Sort.
At Sometimes Somewhere is produced by Audio-Technica for AT1 Radio. It is recorded at AT1 Studio at Technica House, New York. Follow AT1 Radio and Audio-Technica USA on all social media platforms. Thanks for listening.